Welcome everyone to the Nerd Nook. I'm your host Evan Teague, and with me, like always, is Noah Bailey. So, to start off today, I'm going to ask you one simple question. Were you aware that Moana 2 came out?
Literally, no, that's so real because legitimately, until today,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, in my head, I was like, oh, that's coming out in a couple weeks. And my boss was like, yeah, I went to see Moana 2 with my girls last weekend. I was like, oh, oops, I forgot about that. Like, oh, and I'm like, I wonder how that's doing. 'Cause I didn't know that. I feel like a lot of people didn't know that.
So, more on that in just a second, but yeah, I follow the news. I follow Disney stuff to a T. Like, I was well aware that the movie was coming out, and then it came out, and I haven't heard anything about it. None of the songs have blown up.
No.
No people on the internet talking about it. Like it just kind of is there. Yet somehow this movie has made $386 million already.
No way. That can't be right. That's
It came out the
it
week.
just this weekend?
It came out. So the box office reporting does this really dumb thing where whenever they report opening weekend, they report from whatever the first day is that it was released until the next Sunday. Sometimes it's Friday to Sunday, sometimes it's Thursday to Sunday for movies that come out, like this, where it's comes out the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So you have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They report the entire thing as opening weekend. So for that 5-day tracking period, they made $386 million and had the highest opening of any animated movie of all time.
I mean, that's 100% an asterisk because I mean, even though Thanksgiving weekend is kind of a weekend that starts on Thursday at least, that's still like 2 extra days more than normal, and also like probably barely beat that number too. So
I think the previous one was Inside Out 2, which like
yeah,
280 something. So like, yeah,
two
100
extra
extra
days.
million for
That's
two
not
extra
really.
days. That feels about right, especially for a holiday like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, still good, but it's like I mean, I would take that record with a grain of salt.
Right. Um. Yeah, it's just very weird how I didn't really see a lot of advertising for it. I didn't
No.
really a couple of trailers came out, but they didn't really look all that
The
great.
trailers were
Um.
super bland. I mean, the animation looked updated, but I don't remember a single thing that happened in any trailer. It
No.
was like, oh, build up moment. Oh, character from the last movie is in this movie. I'm like,
What? They're bringing the
okay,
pig
that's
along
not.
this time. Like that's cool. They
No,
should have done that last time. I don't
literally.
know. Like
Yeah, no, it's like, wait, was that not the thing last time? Like, you know, it literally, it was like this big build, and they're like, oh, Maui's back. It's like, was Maui not going to be in it? Was that like a surprise? Like,
was that a concern? Like
right? It's like, what, did something go through with the Wayne? Like, what? Like,
yeah. So I did my literal first initial thought from seeing that announcement of it being making that much money, being the highest grossing animated opening of all time. My initial thought was, well, there goes any chance of Disney making anything original ever again. Because I know there were a bunch of other factors that impacted the success of this movie, but last year, for their 100th year anniversary movie, Wish, that just kind of came out around the same time period. I think it was a weekend before Thanksgiving, and no one saw it.
yeah.
Granted, like I said, there were many factors that impacted the success of that. First, it also didn't look that great. Second, the writer and actor strike was happening around at the same time, so they weren't
That, and I
allowed to
think
advertise
that's,
it.
yeah. But then again, like, I mean, I know you could say, oh, but Moana 2 didn't have that much advertising, but you don't really have to advertise a sequel as much as the first movie.
Right.
So especially with how successful the first Moana was. Even though that's been like almost
10 years
Moana
or
won like
8 years.
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um. So like considering Wish made 100 million less than this movie made opening weekend in its total run. Um. I just
yeah.
I fear like if this movie, because the movie obviously it's on track to break 1 billion if it stays at this track. Um, like Disney will have no reason not to to just keep
I
pumping out
mean,
sequels forever.
yeah, kind of. And the thing too that's kind of crazy is like you can't like you can't even be like, oh, nothing's original anymore. It's like, yeah, but it's working. Like you can't even be mad.
Yeah,
It's like it's
yeah,
the financially smart thing to do, but it's also like, do we need 5 Toy Stories? But if they all make 1 billion, I mean, who doesn't want $5 billion?
It- that's a good point.
Right? Right? Like, especially like, I mean, yes, some originals do really well, but I mean, some don't, obviously. And
Mhm.
the thing too is like, it almost seems smart to like, it's almost like you make the original stuff kind of the lottery ticket, so to speak, while you're really the heavy hitters are the ones you know are really going to get picked up for the, the Frozen threes. And then like,
Yeah.
oh, well, we're doing Frozen 3 this year, so we can afford a miss with the lower and new idea. Oh,
Mhm.
we're doing, in a few years, well, Incredibles 3 or Moana 3 or Toy Story 5. Like, you know what I mean? Like the
Mhm.
sequels everyone knows is going to kill it. So we can sprinkle in some original. And then if one of those little original works out, oh, okay, now we got to do two. And then, and it's like, it makes sense from a business standpoint to limit loss when you can, but it's also like,
Mhm.
yeah, originality is basically. But again, I feel like that's kind of just a society thing at this point. I feel like that's like that with every type of movie, show, even like concepts as people. I mean, people don't really like new if it's not proven to be what they like. People like what they like and they like it now.
Mm, yeah. Like I completely understand that humans are creatures of habit and we
Mm-hmm.
much prefer the known than the unknown, but sometimes the unknown can be really good. But
100%. Yeah, but the thing is, like, even if a movie is really good, a lot of people don't want to take the chance because, oh, the movies are expensive. I'll just wait till it comes out on streaming. Oh, this
Mhm.
was really good. I wish I saw it in theaters. Oh, well, I'll just see the next one in theaters if there is one.
Yep, that
You
happened with
know?
Transformers. Everyone and their mother who saw it agreed it was one of the best animated movies, at least animated movies, if not movies of this year. And then when it finally released on Paramount, it was the highest. It was like one of the
Right?
highest opening weekend for viewers on Paramount. And then everyone was like, "Oh, like I hope there's a sequel." It's like, well, it probably won't be because none of you saw when it came in.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's why, like, streaming. That's why I feel like streaming for movies should really chill out. I feel like that's
Yes.
killing the theater because, like,
Hmm.
yeah, if you know a movie's gonna be on Disney Plus, Max, whatever, Netflix, 2, 3 months after it comes out, even earlier if it sucks. I
Hmm.
mean, no one's gonna go see it at all. I mean, like they're not people aren't going to take a chance on something they're not like convinced they're going to see, especially if they
Yeah.
know it's going to be in their living room in a month versus if you said, hey, movies that come out in 2024, no chance of seeing them unless you're in theaters until 2025.
Yep.
It's like that. I feel like that would give I think people would just give movies more of a chance, and
Hmm.
B, I think, yeah, like movies like Transformers 1 or movies that, like, are good and we just found out after the fact. Oh,
Yeah.
maybe we'll give this another chance. Like Dungeons and Dragons a few years ago. A lot of these
Man.
movies that, like, again, really good movie got squandered because people were like, the trailer looks weak. Which, granted, it did.
Yeah.
The trailer was terrible compared to
Paramount
what
needs to
movie we actually got.
fire, and then bury their marketing team.
Yes, because it was like, how, like, this movie's so, like, You didn't. I don't think they had a single joke in the trailer. The movie's 92% jokes
Yeah.
that land, by the way.
Like,
So it's kind of like
the entire
what
trailer for that Dungeons and Dragons movie could have just been the scene where they're like talking to that one dead guy and they like ask him 3 questions. That entire scene is golden. That could have just been the trailer.
Oh my god! I mean, that's what I mean, man. It's like, yeah, like, but with the way people are now, people are like, if I like, I mean, even with shows, I mean, people are
Mhm.
like, if other, like, if other people don't say it's amazing, like, people won't even try stuff that hasn't been confirmed or vetted by someone they trust or enough viewers
Yep.
online or whatever. It's like people, it's like, it's like, imagine if no one ever went to a restaurant unless someone personally told them you should go. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like nobody would ever go anywhere. Any new restaurant would just be doomed. And then the one restaurant that's been on the same street for 100 years would be the only restaurant people go to because
Mm.
you know what to expect there. And like,
Yeah, like at that point, the only
gotta
restaurants that would get business are like McDonald's and Wendy's because people know what they're getting.
exactly
Whereas like the
right.
little mom and pop
Like,
or
is
this
that
like
really the?
gourmet place that has way better food, it's not
Yeah,
really
I mean,
gonna
like, I mean,
thrive.
like we all know that one hole in the wall spot that like no one's ever heard of, but like the food is
Oof.
redonkulous, and they just had to
Yeah.
give it a chance. And I feel
Hmm.
like there's so many movies like that. They're like, oh, this movie's great, but no, I mean, even the first Spider-Verse, I mean, movie was amazing,
Hmm.
but like financially did not meet the cut. A lot of people thought the animation was weird or whatever at the time. Nobody saw
Yeah.
it, and then imagine if that just fell flat, and then we weren't getting more. Like,
Uh-huh.
like
And like
people.
I'm so glad that Sony, didn't can it after like luckily it made about 4 times its budget, but like you know who knows like what they were hoping. I'm sure with Spider-Man in the title they were hoping for a lot more, but luckily it did make a much enough for a sequel to make as much as it did, and hopefully they can figure out what they're doing with the third one because what the heck did Sony?
Yeah, well, I mean, remember they pitched this. It was supposed to be like what, a couple months after the first
It was
one, and then the
supposed to come
second one
out
was ready to
in
go.
June. Well, like when like the release dates were finalized was going to be June and then March.
Right,
Which I'm
and
very glad it
then
didn't come out in March because there was like 7 other movies that came out in March. So like I'm glad it didn't come out then. But still, like
but
you know,
still, like, where are you? It's
I'd be way
December.
more okay with Transformers One, not doing as well if it were going up against Spider-Verse 3 for or
Yes,
something like that.
I mean, yeah. It's like,
It's
where
probably
are
3 years
we?
away still. Like okay.
I just, but like, how do you have? Like what happened? Like you got to tell us what happened. Like did we like run into issues? Like I mean you can't just be like, hey, this is coming out. JK, only half of it.
Hmm.
When's the other half coming out?
Like,
Your guess is as good as mine. What? You're making it? I know. That's crazy, but I mean that's where we're at. I mean it's like it's like Invincible, but like worse. You know what I mean?
Kinda,
Like,
yeah.
it's like, oh yeah, man, here's season 2. Well, half of it anyway. Wait, where's the other of it? I don't know. Oh, here it is. I found it. Like it's just like,
There
okay,
you
but
go.
why would you present it as if you had like you could have just said like if you had just said, oh hey, we're making another Spider-Verse movie and then we got another one on plan. Cool. But it's the whole hey, we're doing 2, like one after the other. That like are you good? Your head's like
Still listening, but my camera got all weird for a second there.
okay.
Uh,
Oh, I just saw your head going like
oh, there we go.
okay, that's better.
I think we're better. Okay, that
Okay.
was weird.
Okay, go.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I was listening.
No, you're good. That was hilarious. No, but yeah, it's just kind of like at this point, why even like mention there's 2 of them? Why not just be like, hey, we made one, and like there might be another one coming. Okay,
Mhm.
no one freaks out. But then when you're like, hey, we got 2 movies here ready to go. Okay,
When we have a
one movie.
date for the sequel, you're not gonna have to
Yes.
wait that long for the cliffhanger to be concluded. No, we're waiting a long time for the cliffhanger to be concluded.
And the thing, and again, it's the like no, like it's the indefinite suspension, which is just like, bruh, wait a minute, what? Like, and again, like, there's no real explanation. It's kind of like, why?
No, but it's whatever. Regardless, I hope Disney is happy with Moana 2's box office. I hope that this box office like amount does end up making like some kind of cultural impact, because the songs in the first one, like very shortly after the movie came out, like they were everywhere. Not as everywhere as like Let It Go from Frozen was, but they were still pretty,
but like that's
pretty big.
Yeah, like I would say it was like a step below like Encanto level.
Yeah,
like
which Encanto was fun because that movie didn't really get big at all until it got released on Disney Plus. It was like released in November, and then no one saw it, and then like it was either on Christmas Day or like a couple of weeks after, maybe early January, then it got released on Disney Plus, and then everyone saw it.
Right, and everyone's like, "We don't talk about Bruno." I'm like, "What? Like, what are we talking?" And then like the soundtrack blows. Like like it got way more popular than they're like performing it and stuff. That's like the movie came basically, just had this giant resurgence, which is awesome, and I think should happen more often. But like, I mean, this is weird that a movie that is definitely a musical, you haven't heard anything about any song about it, and it's kind of like, huh.
Yeah,
that's I don't because when Moana, like especially that You're Welcome, like that's still a meme. I mean, but
yeah. Anyway, moving on. So it's been a couple of weeks, but the Penguin wrapped up back in November, October, something. A couple of weeks. It's been like over a month at this point. And we're not going to like do a full review of it because we've talked like a lot about it kind of throughout, and it's just a very, very good show. I think you should watch it. We'll go more in depth about it for like our year-end like recap list thing later, but like it's a very, very good show. And Colin Farrell confirmed that he is signed on to several future Batman projects, which is great. Yes, like Penguin 2, Penguin 3, The Batman 2, Batman 3. Keep going forever.
I mean, we'll talk more about it, but like, this show, real again, kind of like when we said when we first started, a show no one initially really asked for. We're kind of like, no, people doesn't really need a show, and you're like, okay, well, okay, I can get it. And then you watch, you're like, oh my gosh, this is good. And then you get halfway through, you're like, oh my gosh, this is good. It's like he would. I
appreciate so much how this show just committed him being just a monster.
No, but it's like you knew he was the worst. You already knew, but then you're like, oh, he's not gonna. Yes, yeah, but that's it. Yeah, I know. He doesn't care. Oh my god, it's like,
and you thought Victor made it out. He did not make it out.
Honestly, I was, that was wild. Like it's like you kind of knew, but you kind of didn't too. It was like it'd been long enough. You were like, it's probably no, absolutely not. This is like you kind of forget for a minute. Oh yeah, this is Gotham. There are no happy endings. I forgot it.
But like the end of that show kind of teased like a Catwoman future thing. Like maybe she could get her own show or show up in the Batman 2 and bring Sophia back into the fold. There are talks about the Batman spinoff shows, that kind of thing. Which again, as long as Matt Reeves is attached in some capacity, I am all for it. He knows what he's doing.
They know exactly what they're doing. This universe feels so real. Like it's wild because like you kind of forget this is like DC, you kind of forget. It's kind of just like it just feels like one of those like crime shows, and then you're kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, like you're like, oh, I know these names. I know, or somebody pops up, or like, like, oh, Summer Leeson. I'm like, oh, I know that name. That's from, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
But,
Mm-hmm.
it's really done well.
Yeah, and like basically weekly at this point, James Gunn has to like make an Instagram post, be like, "The Batman 2 is not canceled. I have full faith in Matt Reeves to build his own thing. It'll just be tandem to our universe." It's like, good. That's arguably you should have folded his in, but whatever, it's fine.
I mean, do you think he would be able to? Because I'm like, does this feel like? Although I love the world building, does this feel like something they could add this Batman to like Superman and everyone else? Like it just,
yeah, like here's kind of like my viewpoint is James Gunn, from what I can tell so far, assuming that if it goes as smoothly as it looking like it might, especially with Creature Commandos coming out later this week, and then Superman next year, and then Supergirl, like just things are kind of falling into place to be, to go relatively smoothly. It kind of feels like he's diving all in on this, essentially mirroring how the comics work, where you could just jump right in. These characters are already fully established, and just like, yeah, you can go right in, and they can do crossovers. They can, show up, whatever.
Everyone already knows everybody.
Exactly, yeah. To the point where I've always kind of had this feeling that even if it's the exact same character on paper, I've always kind of felt like the Batman that is in Gotham is not the same Batman that is in the Justice League.
I mean,
because how does Batman take on parademons and like aliens and like freaks like that, and then come back and have issues with Killer Croc and Mister Freeze? Like that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, my thing is like I've always seen it as like it's just Batman doesn't join the Justice League until he's like, I've been doing this for a hot minute kind of thing. It's kind of like Spider-Man with the Avengers. You feel like Spider-Man's not really like there until he's like, at least like 5 years in my head. So it's kind of like by the time by the time Batman's doing the Justice League stuff, Gotham knows what's up. You know what I mean? He's been doing this for a while. It's not like still like hobbling, trying to like, oh man, 3 thugs at once. Oh, he's like, no, like I'm at the point where I can one shot most of my villains, basically.
Yeah. But kind of what I'm getting at is I could, if they did work it out, not that I think they will at this point, but if they were to work it out to have Robert Pattinson be, DC's only Batman going forward, I could easily see James Gunn and whoever writing it in a way that makes him feel like he naturally exists in both universes, like the very grounded, very gritty, like like whatever the Gotham is now, and also that also can exist with Martians and Hawk people and whatever else they do,
Yeah, so like he would it would be the same actor but essentially a different character kind of thing.
Well, kind of functionally different. Like I don't think he would like act pretty similar, but I think I could see them writing it where like he can maybe do things as part of the Justice League that then it wouldn't feel out of place in doing it there, but then it's like, oh, why isn't he doing those things here when like he doesn't like need to when he's back in Gotham? I don't know. I think they could make it work, but regardless, James Gunn has said that the Matt Reeves' Batman stuff is still going to be happening. So especially after the Penguin finale, like you better.
I mean, you kind of have to now. Well, my thing is, if you greenlight a Penguin show, you kind of knew they were going to let this go, because like you don't do that if you don't plan to add more onto this. So
yeah. And speaking of like other spinoffs and stuff, are there any specific shows or concepts that you would particularly want in this universe?
I mean, I'm always a big fan of kind of just like Gotham as a whole. So I really like how they really got into like I think the crime family whole thing. You know, the Maronis, the Falcones, or the Gigantos now. Excuse me, but but yeah, I really like how they started with that. But I also think that like kind of building other certain characters kind of in the light would also work well with this. So if we do go like a Harvey Dent, like Commissioner Gordon Batman trio, kind of build that up, and then maybe in another movie tear that down with Harvey's whole thing. I think that would work really, really well in this universe.
Absolutely. Like I would adore in the exact same way how the Penguin is essentially DC Sopranos. I would adore a Harvey Dent like lawyer crime drama like Better Call Saul type thing. Like that would be amazing.
Yeah. Like it would be done so well. And again, kind of in the same way, kind of like you kind of focus so much on the legal aspect, stuff like that, you kind of forget like, oh yeah, this is Gotham. This isn't just any city. You know?
And so I don't know if how this would work. I don't know if this would be feasible. I just have this concept in my head that I think could be cool if someone could work it out. I think it would be so interesting if they lean like way into Harvey's like multiple personality thing and essentially make it where the entire show Harvey is really trying to go after this one specific serial killer, and then at the end of the show it's revealed that he is that serial killer. He just never realized he was the one doing those things. I think that
there's no way. It's like, cool. It's like I don't get it. It could be anyone. How is it going? It's like how is he always knowing up to it? Like, bro, it's you.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine that?
Yeah, and then like once the thing happens, it makes his face all gooey. Like he kind of like fully adopts that personality at least half the time. That could be. I think that could be cool.
Sound kind of good. Like like a mystery. That'd be kind of cool, actually. Yeah, especially like him and like Commissioner Gordon, like kind of track leads together and like, where were you when this happened? I told you I was here. Something it's not adding up, Jim. This makes no sense. You know, and then it's like. You were the only one.
Absolutely. Because I think one big thing the Penguin was missing was more of the like Gotham PD people. Like I like that one guy with the raspy voice, but you know there was other like there were like other pretty prominent. Yeah, that's just how the guy sounds. I don't really know why.
So
like in a press conference or something, Jim Gordon could have spoken at some point, but. Yeah, not a huge deal, but would have been nice.
Yeah, well, it's like it's kind of the thing where like kind of not in a bad way, but it does almost kind of make you feel like how is no one else seeing this? Like, you know what I mean? It's like all this crazy stuff we're doing. We're literally, we're poisoning people. We're setting people on fire. Doing this.
We blew a hole in the middle of the city.
Well, that's what I mean. You know what I mean? We're doing all this stuff, and then it's just kind of like. Hey, where's Batman? like, what are you doing? Like, do you not see this? Like, bro. Like, the amount of times I'm watching the show and, like, half expecting some goon to just get leveled at any moment, and it just doesn't happen, and I'm just like, man, where are you at? Like, what is, like, what are you doing? Like, are you resting? Like, what's going on? Like,
I know we've discussed this before, but it would have been so cool seeing goons get wasted like from Victor's perspective. Like you don't even like, see Batman, you just like see what he's doing. Like people just getting thrown, batarangs, getting like explosions just happening.
Like I've always said that's like the coolest thing to have where it's like you come like it's like you start a movie, you start a scene, you come in, you got 6 guys get out of the truck, you go into the building. There's 6 guys coming in. And then you okay, guys, split up into this. And then you look around at the shot, there's only 5 guys. But it's not, it's quick. You just, it's one of the things where it's like, until you start paying attention, you're like, wait a minute, where is everybody? And like, by the time they realize what's going on, there's like 3 guys left. And you're like, wait, is Batman here? And then it's like, there's like 3 of us. I'm like, oh, crap. And then like, slowly get picked off. And then the last guy's flipping out. And then Batman just like, oh, man. I always feel like that would be the best way. For me, that's like how you start an ideal Batman movie. It's like, it's like exactly how it would start. And then Batman makes his final entrance in the last goon where he's like trying to shoot him, and it's like his gun's either jammed or like something, and Batman just walks up to him, just smacks the crap out of him. Just like,
yeah. That would have been nice, but whatever. Regardless, we know the Batman eventually figured out, something was happening. At least,
Yeah.
they called him. But yeah, I am all for any DC character that Matt Reeves and James Gunn, James Gunn want to allow Matt Reeves to work on. Have at it.
Yeah.
Have a show where what is Clayface's real name? Whatever him,
Carlo, Basil Carlo.
Have a show of the actor one. Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be great. Well, that's kind of where I thought this show was gonna go. I thought they were gonna meet a lot of people before, meet this is Dr. Isley, or this is whoever. Just kind of just little stuff, not even anything. Especially with the Sophia stuff in Arkham, especially. I know they had Magpie for a second, which was a nice little thing. I thought there was gonna be more of that, or that guy was gonna be Hugo Strange or something. You know what I mean? I was expecting a little more.
I do think they're setting him up to be somebody. There's a rumor that in an early draft of the script he would use some kind of fear toxin to get reactions out of people. I don't know if that was actually true or just fan speculation. But him becoming he still works at Arkham, so he could kind of fill the same role as a Strange.
But still, it's I feel if you were really trying to make, even if it's not just name drop just to name drop, but if you're still trying to
Yeah, it would have been kind of a fun opportunity for them for the show to have someone like a Deathshot where Maroni hires somebody to try to take out Penguin and fails. But
yeah, I think that feels like something you would assume for somebody bigger than just Penguin. It's kind of I don't know, but then again.
Ooh, also, so because Maroni and Falcone are both dead, I think if in the theoretical Two-Face or Harvey Dent show, I think to kind of take the place of Maroni, I think a Black Mask could be a cool placeholder for that.
Next step. Yeah. It seems like
the whole show that him trying to take him down yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like Black Mask's a very underutilized character, especially in live action, because it's kind of I don't know, it just kind of feels very you feel I don't know. I guess it is hard because it does feel kind of oversaturated with the amount of crime bosses that are in Batman's Rogues Gallery, but it's also I feel he's a really good.
You can have two more now. It's fine.
Yeah, but it's we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do Rupert Thorne or something, or I don't know, just
Simon Stagg. A lot of, kind of on
the
business side,
sleazy businessman.
Yeah.
Type of There's always somebody.
Right. Who's Rupert Thorne? I recognize that name, but
he's basically Maroni and them. He's a crime boss. He's not
one of those guys.
He's a mobster crime boss. Same deal.
Okay. Yeah. I'm all in on anything they want to do in this universe. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're let them cook, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So, moving on. Time we finally get around to discussing the Game Awards nominations.
Woo!
So, can you share your screen so we can look at it?
Can indeed. Sure, it's about. Hold on. Go and there it is. Okay, do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay, so we'll start at the bottom with best, or is it most anticipated?
There we go.
We're gonna ignore all those esports and whatever categories.
Yeah, I figured, but I just wanted to, Yeah. Okay, so
this is a pretty stacked list. Obviously, usually the most anticipated is because you wouldn't be anticipating if you didn't like it. But I do kind of feel bad for any of these that aren't Grand Theft Auto 6.
I mean, it's a meme. It's existed. The game hasn't come out yet. Its existence has been a meme for 10 plus years.
Going on 12, yeah.
Oh
because
my gosh.
the 5 came out in 2013, so it's going to be over 12
Yeah.
years before it comes out.
Yeah. 12 years, 2 consoles later. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like somehow I know Red Dead Redemption 2 came out, but Grand Theft Auto just skipped the PS4 and Xbox One. Like, oh,
Yep.
okay, sure. And they're going halfway into the next generation. That's awkward. Okay.
Literally, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like, this is a really good list. I know, like, so Ghost of Yotai also looks
Oof.
amazing and
Yeah.
definitely 100% worth getting. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I think just name brand alone, as well as the memes, and honestly, I mean, it does look pretty solid. But I mean,
Yeah.
GTA 6 is, I mean, that's you can't really
Yeah.
beat that in this
Like,
category.
yeah. Like, obviously, I'm excited for Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Those games are always very good. It was one of the first games ever announced for Nintendo Switch, and it honestly, at this point, might end up being a Switch 2 game, or at least a cross-gen game at this point.
Yeah,
Very similar trajectory as Breath of the Wild back in the day. And Monster Hunter games are always very solid. This game looks,
yeah.
right in line with that. Like if I were you, I would vote for Ghost of Yotai, but if you can vote, it's whatever, it's fine. But Grand Theft Auto 6 is obviously going to win that category.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the foregone conclusion. But
Gonna do a previous to go next thing.
see what we got next. We got
Okay,
best
adaptation.
adaptation. Okay.
This category is very funny because there's only two shows on this list that even have a chance of winning. That being Arcane season 2 and Fallout.
Yeah.
Knuckles is a lot of fun, but it's not really that great. Like a Dragon is kind of too recent for people to care about it, and Tomb Raider is fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Have you seen
Fallout.
Arcane at all?
Oh, Arcane's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, I got put onto this show. It's
Yeah.
kind of insane.
Yeah. I feel like the vibes of season 2 generally aren't grabbing me as much as season 1, but it's still very well written. Just it's overall a good show. But I love the Fallout show. As someone who never played a Fallout game, my roommate loves Fallout, so had to like explain a lot of stuff to me as we went. But like it captured the vibe super well. There were a lot of like very clever references to the games, kind of sprinkled throughout, but they weren't in your face about it. Um, do you know anything about the Fallout series?
Not really.
Okay. Well, there's this mechanic in Fallout where you can like when you're about to shoot, you can kind of slow down time to like focus in on opponents' like vital points and like uh just so you can deal increased damage. And because of that mechanic in the games, um kind of backing up just a bit, I'm not always like the biggest fan of unnecessary slow mo in movies and stuff. I feel like it always just kind of takes you out of the action a little bit. Like the Avatar show from earlier this year used way too much slow mo. It was not necessary when the original show was like very fast and very like you didn't need all of that. It would have been fine just at normal speed. But there was at least one fight in particular where the slow mo was clearly very intentionally like placed in a way that seemed to be specifically both using slow mo as shows usually do, but also specifically referencing that mechanic from the game. Like, oh, well, that's very clever. Like, it's little things like that just show the people who made this game or made this show rather clearly, loved and appreciated the source material. So I like that. However, Arcane is going to win, unfortunately, but I did want to give Fallout a shout out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Have you seen any of season 2 for Arcane?
I have not seen season 2. I just finished the first season, so I'm still. But from what I've heard, season 2 is just as good for most people.
Okay.
So
Cool. Scroll back up to the title of this one because this one kind of annoys me. Best multiplayer for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design. Why is it only online? Why not best online game? No, it's best multiplayer. Yet Mario Party is here. Yes, it has an online game, but that's mostly a couch party game.
Yeah, no, that's
what?
local multiplayer.
And like Tekken 8, like fighting games, like it has an online mode and it's a really good fighting game, but it's the point of fighting games is to to play with your friends on the same console. Like, what?
I mean, at least it used to be. I mean, like Tekken when I was growing up, yeah, absolutely. It was all about sitting on the couch with your friends, your family, and just seeing who's got the best skills. But I mean, games now, especially fighting games now, I mean, it's all about the online scene, and people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, if it's not going crazy online, the game stinks." Which
Yeah.
it is what it is, I guess. But
I just feel like there easily could have been a best online multiplayer or best local multiplayer, and
yes,
that local could have encapsulated the like the fighting games and arena fighters like Dragon Ball Fighter,
yeah,
not Dragon Ball Sparking. Um, because Mario Party Jamboree is one of the best Mario parties ever made. Like everybody agrees it's a
yeah.
great Mario Party, and the online is fine. Like it works, but it's
That's
not
something
an
you pay for.
online the same way that Helldivers or Black Ops is an online game. You know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, there are multiple categories that I feel need to be redefined, some new, different. I mean, because we'll run into this issue quite a few times throughout this list,
Yeah,
but yeah, this is one of the examples where it's like, yeah, this needs to be different categories. Like we don't, these things shouldn't be up for the same awards.
yeah. Like these are all great games. Warhammer Space Marine 2 is a very very good game. Has a great online multiplayer, but I don't know. I have issue with Mario Party Jamboree being in either. If Mario Party weren't here, I honestly wouldn't care as much. But because that is here, they clearly kind of meant for it to be multiplayer generally. But I don't know. It's Helldiver 2 is going to win because that's a that just took the year by storm and still is doing very well. But
Pretty awesome.
yeah, and honestly, for the as someone who doesn't really play Call of Duty at all, Black Ops 6 has been I've actually quite enjoyed the experience playing that this year. It's on Game Pass. I'm not buying that, but it's on Game Pass, so I can play it. It's pretty good.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. Unad.
Moving right along.
Best sports racing game.
Sports.
Don't care. Next.
Fair enough. The fact that
Racing one,
college
yeah.
football 25 is not on there is criminal, by the way. I
It
don't
wasn't?
understand that at all.
Really?
No! That was
Yeah,
one of
actually,
the things. Like,
maybe I
again,
do care.
I'm not a huge sports guy. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, I'm like, bro, like, college football 25. First of all, the fact that like half of these should be. This is a game.
Top
Like, I
Sin
didn't
Flu K25. Okay.
never heard of that in my entire life. Never would have heard of that. But I mean, the fact that like they 100% should have put college football on just because I mean they haven't had one in 10 plus years. The game's actually pretty fun. I don't know.
It came out. It's one of the best-selling games of the year. Like it
is.
This is also a category that I just don't have enough knowledge about. Like I've heard of Frostpunk, I've heard of Age of Mythology, I've heard a lot of people say good things about Unicorn Overlord, but even someone who's tapped into games a lot, this isn't my kind of game. So we can skip this one for now. Best family game, the Nintendo category.
There we go. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, that you put Mario Party Jamboree there, absolutely.
Yes.
This is another one where I want to read the description again because there's a couple on here that don't really fit. For the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. Appropriate for family play.
Aren't these single player games though?
So yeah, the only game that I think should win this category is Mario Party. That's the only one that the family can play together. Like Echoes of Wisdom is a great Zelda game, but it's only a family game because it has a chibi art style. Princess Peach Showtime, like that's a solid, like at least a fairly solid Princess Peach like platformer action style game. But same with Astropod. Astrobot is a fantastic platformer.
Yes.
Same with Plucky Squire. It's a pretty good game, but if Mario Party doesn't win this category, I feel needs to be reworded or reworked somehow to.
Yes.
Yeah. Because
I
essentially,
would
which
definitely.
game, like only games that have chibi or like, these are essentially games that they, outside of Astrobot, which gets a lot of flowers later too, these are games that they felt they should put somewhere because Nintendo deserves attention, but we can't put them in the real categories because they don't make real video games. So we've made a category for them. And yeah.
But they do make real. I mean, not a
Uh,
ton, but I mean, what? I don't know.
no, like Echoes of Wisdom absolutely should be in more categories than it is. It has, I think, amazing art style, good music.
Yeah,
It's just a solid game. Like has some like frame rate issues, but as far as like the actual gameplay, it's a very good game. But yeah, I think Mario Party Jamboree should win this category. It's probably going to go to Astrobot because that is in other like higher tier categories, and those
mm,
tend to win lower tier categories. But if they're also in both, but regardless,
that's still like, yeah, okay.
that's fighting game.
Best fighting. Well, you know who I'm voting for.
Yeah. The fact that multiverses is here at all is very funny to me because have you been following this game at all?
I,
Multiverses.
yes, but like almost to the point I'm like, what? Like,
I think it first came out in like 2022, was like either 22 or early 23 as a beta, and then it got taken offline for almost a whole year, and then came back worse somehow. Like essentially the gameplay I saw of it from its initial launch seemed very like the faster Smash Bros. Games, like not quite as fast as Melee, but like more towards that. And then when it came back, it was like every combo was like super sluggish. All the characters felt very heavy. Like I just don't. That wasn't what people were complaining about with the games. I don't know why. What do you do for that year? Like you didn't fix anything. You just made it worse.
and they're like, I mean, they add characters here. It's like it feels like characters they should have had initially, or they're just now adding, and it's kind of like okay, but like too little, kind of too little, too late, kind of deal. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Um, yeah, I personally think that Tekken 8 is going to win this category. However, I know you love Sparking Zero, so that
I,
that'll get my
I
vote. But that,
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I don't care about the voting as much as I'm just glad Sparking Zero exists and I own it, so I don't really care if it
mhm,
wins awards or not. I know it's for me, it's the best by a long shot. I mean, granted,
right.
I haven't played a Tekken game in a while. I stopped playing Tekken after 5 anyway, so I don't really
Mm.
care about the newer ones. But
Uh-huh. Yeah. Moving on. Best RPG.
okay,
This category always annoys me because every game on these lists are always different games. Like like Metaphor Refantasino, that is that is like a Persona style, like traditional JRPG. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, like the Final Fantasy games at this point aren't
they're not.
really RPGs in the same way they used to be. Like, yeah, you can make a party, you
No.
can switch out whoever, but like you can't like really level up in the same way. You don't really have like tiers of spells as far as I could be completely wrong, but I know like the main gameplay is like action RPG now as opposed to
Yeah, I
turn
mean,
based.
it's kind of like Final Fantasy now. It's like RPG in a way, kind of like Assassin's Creed is trying to be RPG. Kind of. It's not really
Right.
RPG. It's just borrowing some elements and putting a slapping RPG on it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you know what you are.
Yeah. Like you have a team and those teams the people in those teams can do attacks that you can kind of customize. Like it kind of got grandfathered into the genre, really. Um,
Yeah,
and then Elden Ring Shadow of the Earth Tree, which we'll talk more about this game much later on, but that game is like a DLC expansion to Elden Ring, the game that won Game of the Year in 2022. That and
right.
Dragon Dogma, they're also, I feel, RPGs in the same way that Assassin's Creed kind of is, because like yes, you can pick your character and you can pick their class, but like
Kind of it.
I don't. Maybe I'm just too. Maybe my brain is just too focused on what an RPG like classic like turn-based style RPGs like a Persona or original Final Fantasy or Dragon
No.
Quest or whatever, but like I don't know, those being in the same category as something like a Metaphor, which is a very traditional RPG, just feels a little weird.
No, I mean you're right. I mean it's not. I mean they're just changing how RPGs are because for the longest time there was like this lull in the success of how the traditional RPG was. So they kind of just like, oh, it's we're just making God of War with extra steps essentially because that's the kind of
Mhm.
games everyone likes, which is like
Yeah.
fine, but like own it for what it is. Like they need it's like an RPG hybrid kind of thing. Like don't just
Yeah.
but it
Like it's like essentially ever since stuff like The Witcher and Elder Scrolls really took off, like those kind of became what RPGs are now, which like that's fine. I just feel like I almost feel like that should have been in a different genre. Like an open world RPG is kind of a different thing entirely than a more linear traditional JRPG. But
yeah. I mean it is. I wouldn't even call it RPG though. I mean, I just feel like it just kind of like I think it should just be called something else, like some kind of like adventure experience. I don't know. I'm not sure,
yeah,
but yeah, I feel like
yeah,
RPG now it doesn't mean what it used to, and it's kind of
yeah,
allowed these categories to kind of just throw in anything that potentially even a little bit applies.
yeah, and like, and maybe I'm talking myself in a circle or even like out of this thing, but I almost feel like, in a way, the way the modern definition of role playing game is, like, for something like Dragon's Dogma or Elden Ring, where you create your own character and you like give them a class, like that is more so you playing a role in this world than having a character with like a set move set and you're just protagonist of this story. But like regardless, I feel like those should be different categories. Um, but yeah, I'd be fine with either Final Fantasy or Metaphor be Fantasia winning because those are both great games. So yeah, moving on. Okay, here's where the best action
Uh,
adventure, which is
After
different
like
from
the
best
game from the
action game.
last right, which is also dumb. But like I feel like half the games from the last category would apply to this category.
Right? Yeah, like how is Elden Ring more of an RPG than an action adventure? Like how is Dragon's Dogma more?
Right.
I feel that's more action adventure than Silent Hill. Silent Hill is a that's a that's a horror game. Like you have like a little hub
Yeah.
world that you run around, but like it's
It's
not
not
an
really
adventure game.
like I mean, I guess if the adventure is potentially dying, but I mean
Like again, these are all very different kinds of game. Like Astrobot's a 3D platformer. Prince of Persia is a very good 2D Metroidvania style game. Silent Hill is a platformer. Star Wars Outlaws is a Ubisoft game, and then Zelda is a Zelda game. So yeah, it's I don't know. I just find it very funny how, especially when like the next category up is going to be best action game, when like the best action game, the best of the games where you go and do something. No, sorry, where you do something. But the best action adventure games are the games where you go and do something. It's like I don't really know the difference. Like,
yeah, it's like I mean these categories they're so I don't know who's like this like deciding both the categories and what games to put in, but it feels so disconnected because it's just like, oh, this category, let's see. It's like they put one game in they know wants to win, and then just kind of throw in other games just to kind of like
yes,
fill it up. And it's kind
there's
of
several
like,
categories like that exactly. Mhm.
right? And it's just kind of like, what are we doing here? What are we like? Is this really like, are we really trying to get the best of this game, or are we just trying to give another game this one award? Because that's what it
Mhm.
feels like we're doing.
Yeah,
But
like
it is
3D
what it
3D
is.
platformer being an action adventure just feels weird to whatever.
Well, it's not the
Metroidvania.
same. I mean, that's not the kind of game it is. I mean, like, yes, you can. It's like an adventure in a platform way, but it's like, no, like it's a platformer. Like, it's like that's its own. Like, I shouldn't have to. If I have to say the type of game it is, and it's not like in it, like it's not like you're not. We're not just volunteering it for other categories, especially if it's just gonna lose anyway.
Like, I feel much better about something like a Metroidvania style game like Prince of Persia being there, or Star Wars Outlaws, which is a open world planet hopping action game. Like, yeah, that's action adventure. You pick where you go. Like, it's absolutely Zelda. Zeldas are adventure games, absolutely. Silent Hill, no, not really. Astrobot, not really. Like, platformer should have been its own thing, but whatever.
I don't know, but because it's popular, it's probably gonna win this one too. Who knows?
Probably.
Moving on.
Okay, best action game.
Action game, which is completely different from action adventure because action and action adventure aren't the same at all.
At least in this specific case, all of these are definitely pure action games. Although I would feel like Black Myth Wukong is a action game, like it is a adventure game the same way that Silent Hill is, because like you still like you kind of have levels. You can only have like it's I don't know like or more so the same way that Astrobot is an adventure game because there's levels that you go like from point A to B until you beat all the bosses and win, more or less. But regardless, like it's a like Black Myth Wukong is basically like a Souls-like action game. Call of Duty, Helldivers are shooters. Stellar Blade is also like a kind of like a Devil May Cry Bayonetta style game with Souls elements. And then Warhammer is another like third-person shooter. So yeah, this is more so. This has been the one category so far. But yeah, this is correct.
These all fit. This looks like it was done well. Granted, they probably could have added some more, changed a few, but like none of these games, I'd be like, that's not an action game. That's exactly what an action game is.
Yeah, but like primarily combat. Like I feel there's games in the previous category that also have a lot of combat, but whatever.
Yep, but
whatever. AR/VR Batman, I guess. I don't know.
I guess I don't know. I haven't really heard anything about any of these others, and I mean, I don't know. I've heard the very few people who I do know about the Batman Arkham have said it was good, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, why didn't we just make another one? But
right? Why is it a VR game?
Yeah, but
Okay, best mobile game.
Mobile game.
Balatro is one you're going to see a couple of times throughout. It's a roguelike poker game, which is not something that anybody would ever think to do, but they did it, and it's apparently really good. Like, you have your standard deck of cards, but like there's also like other cards you can like collect as you go that like enhance and like give you extra turns and do stuff. Is confusing and kind of cool. And it's so that game wasn't initially announced for mobile, it was just Steam and console, and like everyone got immediately obsessed with it. And then as soon as it was announced for mobile, it's like every single person on Twitter was like, "Oh, dang it, my productivity is gonna go through like down the gutter. It's gonna be on my phone. I cannot play it."
Well, there goes my spare time.
Yeah. The Pokemon trading card game, it's fun. Like if you it's a good way to get introduced into Pokemon card collecting without feeling like you need to spend $1 million actually physically collecting the cards. Obviously there's like ways you can like pay for the ability to like get cards faster and stuff, but if you just play it, you'll be able to still have the satisfaction of opening packs and battling and stuff. So it's a pretty solid trading card game.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about the other ones.
No.
That's debut indie game. This category is interesting because debut indie and indie are two different categories, and I kind of understand why. Like, this is celebrating, like, this is the studio's first game, and that's great. But then at least two of these games, maybe one other, are also in best indie game. So whichever one wins one of those probably will win the other one. Like Velatro is probably going to win both
Well,
because spoilers,
well, I feel
Velatro is in the Game of the Year category, so it's probably going to win Best Indie
okay.
Game if it's.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, yeah. Well, my thing is like, yeah, if you win best indie game, period, you kind of automatically win best debut indie game. So kind of
Mhm.
because it's kind of like, you know, by that logic, it kind of has to be. But then again, if you're
Yeah.
in for game of the year, even if you don't win, you kind of automatically have to win best indie game
Right.
and by extension best debut indie. So it's kind of like a foregone conclusion. But
Yeah.
you know,
I will say like Animal Well, my brother played that. He really enjoyed it. Plucky Squire, that that game, it's a solid game that has what is known in the industry as, or as far as like the gaming community, as first game syndrome, where the people who made this game, they have a million ideas for all these different games they want to make, all these mechanics, all these stories, all these things. So like, this is our one chance to make a standout game. We're gonna put them all in the same game, and like, so you play like a solid couple of hours of this game and you're really enjoying it, and then it turns into kind of something else, and then it turns again, and by the end it feels you're not even playing the same game, and then like by the time you are fighting the final boss, like almost none of the mechanics really mesh together. People are like, it's each individual part is very solid. Like the conceit of the game is that you basically play on like a storybook. Like you're basically like as you're progressing through the level, you're like turning pages to keep going, and like that's cool. And then once you get to the end of the book, the character literally like hops out of the page and he starts like running around the table the book was on, and now it's like a third person little adventure game. Like that's really cool. And there's a mechanic where you literally like take words from one book and bring them over to another to progress. So like that's really cool. And the main character is a guy with a little sword, but then at one point it turns into a shoot 'em up, and then it turns into like a little like beat 'em up style. Like there's just it's just doing a little too much and kind of gets away from what made the original game really cool with like its storybook aesthetic. But still a solid game. If they get a sequel, I hope they kind of focus in on what they actually want it to really be. But still, solid game. I don't think it's going to win this category because Velatro is here, but I just wanted to shout it out.
okay.
Yeah. And then best
Hey,
indie game,
best indie
again,
game in general.
Animal Wild Velatro. One of those is winning both of these categories.
Yeah. Any word
UFO
on these two?
50.
These three?
UFO 50, that one is interesting because that one is essentially the like issue with Plucky Squire, but it acknowledged that issue and intentionally made 50 different like full games in one. Like they're shorter games, but like
What?
that are like full on like little sprite based like little game. Like not all of them are super in depth. Like not all of them are like fully realized, but like all of if you have 50 games, there's a solid half of them that are actually like pretty substantial. So you can like pretty easily switch between them, and it's pretty cute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. Next, best community support. Um, I don't really know what this one's judging. Really, recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates. Okay. I do know that Helldivers should not win. If you know anything about Helldivers, it has a very good community, and like at first, this looked like it was going to be, it was going to be like this, like kind of a perfect game. Like the the way the the way the community plays kind of impacts how the story of the entire galaxy of the world you're in like evolves. Like essentially the developers kind of like see how players do on certain planets, and then like, oh, if if people are getting like an overwhelming victory on this one planet, they could either choose just let that planet oh, you conquer that planet, or they could be like, oh, actually now a race of like robots have spawned here, they are now starting to like fight back and like that kind of thing. And then if like you lose a planet, it's like you can't go back there like that, which is very cool and clearly shows like if it had just stayed like that with the community fully engaged, with developers being very engaged with their audience, like if it stayed like that for the entirety of the year, that'd be perfect. However, this game is co-produced by Sony, and it came out in like February of this year, February, January, like pretty early in the year, and then by May they announced that they were going to make it so that everybody who played this game, whether it was on PlayStation 5 or on PC, you had to have a PlayStation account in order to play it. And a lot of people who were on Steam didn't have a Sony account. And they didn't want a Sony account. They are very aware that Sony's accounts can, get hacked and have their information leaked. That's happened many times before. They don't want to risk that. They just, they don't want to worry about signing into, 8 different things just to play the game. Like, I completely understand that. And Sony was very, like, cagey about whether or not they were going to fix it. And I honestly don't even know at this point if they did get around to, like, where they settled on it. But, like, for over a month, it was, like, the game kind of, like, just plummeted. Like, it kind of rose back up a bit, but, like, for a while there, it looked like people were boycotting it outright just because they didn't want Sony to mess it up. And I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, forcing, especially if I don't play on PlayStation, I'm not going to make a Sony account. Like, I'm just not.
Yep. So, it's a great game. I just wish that one little blemish didn't like ruin it. But yeah, Final Fantasy 14 has always had very good community support. Same with obviously Fortnite still going. No Man's Sky is a very interesting case where when it first came out in 2014 or 15, it absolutely sucked. No one liked it. It was not the game they were promised, and over time it eventually did become the game it was promised, and it's still going good. So yeah. And then Baldur's Gate 3 was good when it came out, so it's it's still good. So moving on. This is a different category for some reason.
Yeah, I don't understand. So the word specifically, like ongoing content, is kind of like because I'm pretty sure they use the exact same phrasing, or at least very similar phrasing here, and it's kind of like
updates.
Okay, but what's the difference? Content. It's like,
and Helldivers 2 is in this category here, but it came out just earlier this year. Like, it's not old enough to be ongoing yet. Like, what? I Destiny 2 is a 10-year-old video game almost. And of course, that's here. It's still getting updates. Final Fantasy 14 is 10 years old. Fortnite's 7 years old. Diablo 4, that at least came out last year. Did they not have a 5th game to put in this category?
Probably.
Okay.
That's probably it. I mean, I don't know. But yeah, it just feels like, they're just kind of, like you said, they're kind of just throwing things at the category and like, oh, yeah, it'll be one of these, probably.
Yeah. Like, and I think last year, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, which was the expansion to Cyberpunk 2077, which came out last year, that game was in this category. Sure, so I'm like, if there was ever a category for Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree to be in, I feel it would be this one, because it is an expansion to a game that came out several years ago. Like, that would make sense. But that's not here. So. Anyway. Games for Impact is a category I don't feel talking about. So I don't really want to touch that. This category annoys me because let me just read what the description is. Recognizing software and or hardware, I don't really know what that means, okay, that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. Great. I encourage that. I encourage like arachnophobia modes. I know you appreciate that.
Love it.
Yeah, like color blinding modes.
Yeah.
Like there's specific uh, modes, like just many different options to make text size bigger, like changing like colors and things to make it just easier to see, like have just like change colors of reticles. Like there's so many things that all these games do that are good for people that need them. I know Prince of Persia Lost Crown has like 50, I'm barely exaggerating, 50 different screens for accessibility just options. I don't really know what they all do. I just know that people praise this game for it. Ubisoft is always very good about. It's one of the things they're only things they're really great at is doing accessibility options.
You just couldn't make it be a straight compliment, could you?
No, I couldn't. I am praising the Prince of Persia team, the team that made that game, not Ubisoft. However, if you scroll down just a little bit more, it doesn't tell you what these games do. It doesn't not just like a brief color blinding, some kind of audio thing for people that or like just I don't know. Like there's many different things these games do, but we just the game, not what it does, just the game. That's a little annoying, I think.
Right. I mean, unless you've literally played all of them, you won't know. Which I doubt. I mean, there's probably not many people who have played all of these games.
Absolutely. Like, this is supposed to be a celebration of gaming, and I want to give these games the appreciation they deserve for what they are doing to help as many people, experience them as possible. Yet, this is going to be one of those awards that they just kind of give, and the person, like, they might have a person, like, this is going to be one of those games they give just like between big announcements, where it's like they're like off to the side is like, and here's our next, our next winner. They won, and then like they might have someone come up for like 30 seconds and talk about how good they did at doing accessibility stuff, how much they appreciate the industry for allowing them to do that, without actually explaining what they did, and then moving on. It's like, but I want to know what specifically. I want to know why I'm praising you. Like I appreciate your flowers, but like I want to know what you got them for.
Too bad. He's like,
well.
Love me or no. Oh well.
Oh well. This category also infuriates me because it's the best performance. And I know that Brianna White played Aerith in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but why doesn't it say who she played in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth?
Literally.
Like, for all of these, I assume it's just the main character, but like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth / Aerith, Star Wars Outlaw / whoever that person was, Senua Saga Hellblade 2 / Senua. Like, it shouldn't be that hard, I don't think, but apparently it is.
I mean, again, they barely put the categories together. They just throw things in. They don't know who to decide. Like they're not going for informed. They're going for we need these people to win these things.
Go back just one more second. Also, I feel like it also is kind of a disservice to the person itself by saying, like, scroll down, to saying like, oh, we're giving this award to Final Fantasy VII, not the person.
Yeah, you actually did the work. It's your voice.
Yeah, like
promotion.
Will come up with just a little bit more, but when the Oscars do Best Director, they don't give it to the movie; they give it to the person.
I was literally about to make that comparison. I'm like, they don't just say like, "Oh yeah, great job, movie, for doing this Best Supporting Actor." They say, "Hey, you get a Best Supporting Actor role for your role as this person in this movie."
Cillian Murphy won Best Actor for being that guy in Oppenheimer. Like, it's him. Yes. He won it for his role in Oppenheimer. But yeah, whatever. That's audio design. I never know how to judge this. I think all games sound good. I don't know. Like, the guns in Call of Duty sound good. The music and sword slashes and stuff in Final Fantasy sound good. Silent Hill is all about atmosphere, so Yeah, it sounds good. Like they're good.
I mean, this is one of those where, yeah, it's kind of like I feel like unless you're just a really big gamer as far as like you've played at least some or most of these, or like you have a history of like knowing good sound design, basically, or like you're into that.
Mhm.
Like, I not really. You're kind of just gonna pick whatever game you like best here.
Yeah. I do think that Silent Hill 2 should win because horror games specifically
Mm-hmm.
like live and die by how good things sound, like how creepy, like
Yeah.
footsteps and like just the atmosphere of the town, like any given sound or like ominous music, like horror games. And it's a good horror game. I feel like it should win, but you know, I'm sure they're all good at whatever they do. Okay, best score on music. Metaphor Refantazio has an amazing score. Obviously, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has One Winged Angel, so it is going to win. But it's, even outside of that, a great score. Astrobot has the advantage of having like you visit a bunch of different Sony character worlds and having like little motifs of those characters. So it's a bunch of different like not quite to the level of Smash Bros, but kind of the similar vibe of that, where it's like a
Yeah.
lot of music in this game. Yeah. Um, yeah. Either Final Fantasy or Metaphor. This category always. This year's a little better than most. Most years, it's like which game looks the most realistic, which does take effort. I completely understand that. But when I'm looking at a game, I personally don't think that something like a Horizon Zero Dawn looks more appealing than a Breath of the Wild. Like, I like cell shading, I like colors, I like uniqueness in designs. Like, oh, like, these, like, I don't know. That's just a personal preference. Like I know the boss designs in Black Myth Wukong look visually really good. There's a lot going on there. Same with Elden Ring, but I don't know. I really like their art style of Metaphor Refantazio. Neva, a little bit of gameplay I've seen of that. It looks very stylized and good. Astrobot looks colorful and fun. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna put too much stake in this category specifically, but I would prefer if something like more colorful wins. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I mean, when I think of art design, that's what I think too. Like something that's like, especially utilize, because I feel like Astrobot really utilizes like the PS5's ability to like really make color pop. Because like, I mean, I'm colorblind, and even I was like, good gracious.
Mm,
So it's like,
yeah, absolutely. Best name.
yes, there. Okay, a simple
If
category. I
you're
like it.
yeah, if you're giving the if you're giving the win to the most narrative, that would be Final Fantasy.
Bro,
But
games are ridiculously long.
yeah, like this is the second part of a three-part series, and it's also like
Yes,
100-hour RPG somehow,
yes. I'm like, what? Who has time for this?
right?
Like I
That
understand the original game came out on 4 discs, but that's one of those things where it's like they just did that because it was like that was the PlayStation 1. You don't have to do that anymore.
yeah, come on. Like each part shouldn't be 100 gigabyte download. Like what are we doing?
Seriously.
Um, yeah, Metaphor has a really, really good story. Senua Saga Hellblade 2 is one of those that essentially its only story is essentially as a walking simulator where you like press buttons. This is gonna sound very basic and kind of dumb to say it out loud, but it's true. It's a walking simulator that once enemies come in your way, you press a series of buttons and then you win. I know that's not all games. Like no, it's basically like it's basically a bunch. It's either you're walking and then a bunch of quick time events, and you're walking and a bunch of quick time events. Like that's pretty much all it is. There's no real strategy to it. It's just the story is good, but that's kind of all it has.
One of those games that you can just watch the cutscenes on YouTube and you get the full enjoyment.
Yeah. And Silent Hill 2 is a remake of a great game from 20 years ago, so we already know it's great. So yeah. Okay. Best game direction. Fun fact, I think Metaphor is below that. Keep trolling. Yeah.
This.
Yeah. This this is almost always the case, but never to this degree. The best game direction and game of the year are always almost identical.
Same game.
And
Yeah.
I think the statistic goes, the last 4 years. Oh, sorry, the last 6 years. 4 out of those 6 years, the game that won best game direction also won game of the year. So probably whichever wins this category will win game of the year. So we can just go ahead and skip to the next one because it's the exact same. It's the exact same list.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, game of the year we have Astrobot Balatro, Black Myth Wukong, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and then Metaphor Refund to Zeo. When this was announced, people got mad that Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, an expansion to the game that won in 2022, was on here.
Yes. I mean, again, we've talked about this before earlier tonight, but it's like there needs to be more categories as far as there needs to be a DLC / expansion / whatever category so we don't have this happen. Because don't get me wrong, nobody's saying Shadow of the Erdtree isn't great, but you can't. I don't think you should be nominated for Game of the Year when you're not really a standalone game.
Correct. And if this were like a Witcher 3 Blood and Wine or a Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, like those games you can just buy on their own. They're like a $20 expansion you can buy on their own. You don't need to boot up the original game in order to get it. That's completely different. If Witcher 3 Blood and Wine came out this year as a standalone thing and was amazing, then sure, it can be here. But for Shadow of the Erdtree, you need to, if you haven't already played through Elden Ring, you have to play at least, if you're kind of speedrunning, at least 8 hours of Elden Ring in order to get to the spot where you can then play Shadow of the Erdtree. A lot of games are 8 hours long. Like you can't ask someone to play an entire game's length of game in order to then play the game that's going to be Game of the Year. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
No. And that's dumb. And I think that's just one of those things you really need to they need to reevaluate. Because again, especially really good, if we're using this precedent, really good games as they add DLC, you're just gonna keep hogging Game of the Year. It's like,
right.
Oh, sorry, you weren't an expansion of this game that's also really good, so you lost.
Mm-hmm. Like if, let's say, in theory, back in 2022, if like the two front runners for Game of the Year that year were Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. It was always going to be Elden Ring. That was just as soon as the game came out and it got like a 97 on Metacritic, like that was always going to be the winner. But let's say somehow, like in 2018, when God of War somehow beat Red Dead, let's say God of War just came out of nowhere, everyone loved it, and like that won Game of the Year in 22. Because Elden Ring didn't win that year, and then this year its DLC came out and it's just as good, debatably as the original, like the base game. Okay, that's like a second chance for this game to win. Like that's
flowers, but
better. But no, how it looks right now is, it's still weird. I wouldn't love it, but it's at least more justified. That's kind of how I feel about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Like the original Final Fantasy, it lost to The Last of Us 2, which I don't think that game personally deserved to win that year, but whatever. This is a sequel to that. Like it's finally a chance, maybe, for Final Fantasy VII something to win.
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like, is this also in that category of just kind of I feel like that's kind of the same thing where it's it's not exactly the same, it's not DLC, but it's still kind of you're just cooking a long game and you're just cooking letting pieces out. Is that should be its own thing or ongoing or something like that.
yeah, like, and for Elden Ring, because it's here, it really feels like it's taking away a spot from another game that we've seen
Yes.
several times throughout that should be here, like Yakuza, or I guess like a Dragon 8 that showed up a couple of times. Silent Hill 2 showed up a couple of times. Helldivers showed up a couple of times. Like in the same way that Player Unknown's Battleground was nominated in 2017 for some reason. Like it kind of had the same trajectory as Helldivers, like that. It's like at least it's one of the games that encapsulated everything that happened this year. That just feels like it
Yeah.
should be
It
here.
absolutely did and should, but
Yeah.
because we got to make room. Yeah, this that's
Mhm.
the thing. Like I feel like this has so many categories that like walk on top of each other, but then when you actually need differentiating categories, it falls flat. And it's like, what are we
Right.
doing?
Like I kind of have similar feelings to Black Myth Wukong, where I've heard it's a solid game, but there were other games that released this year that had a higher Metacritic, like Dragon's Dogma 2, Tekken 8, like I said, Silent Hill. Like all those games had at least an 82 or higher, which Black Myth Wukong had a 81. It's the lowest rated game ever to be nominated for Game of the Year. It's
Really?
it's a little, which that's 81 is good, but
Yeah, but like game of the year, good.
I don't know. Like people like it, but I don't know if it's as good as Final Fantasy or Metaphor, or whatever else.
Mhm.
Yeah, like
What do you think is going to win?
I I think in my heart of hearts, I want Metaphor ReFantazio to win just for kind of a couple reasons. One, Atlas games, they get nominated a lot for like they get nominated a lot for Game of the Year categories, but they seem to never win because like other games are just obvious blowouts for the years that come out. Like in
Yeah,
2017, it was Persona 5. That was the Zelda year.
yeah, it was
Like it
like
was
it was
close,
funny.
but Breath of the Wild is going to win that. And like I don't know. From everything my brother has played, from everything I've seen online, every single person that's played it absolutely adores that game. Like I want Atlas to make more games like it. I want this game to be as successful as possible. And like we already know that Final Fantasy 7 3, I guess, is going to come out at some point. This is already the third Astrobot game, so like they're going to keep going with that franchise. The Blotro being an indie game, the indie games don't usually win Game of the Year, so it'll be fun if that did too, for just how big of an impact that game made. Although people do really like Astrobot. That's it just kind
I
of
mean,
came out of
it is
nowhere.
really
People kind of
cool.
wrote it off, and it's a very good game.
I mean, it's pretty awesome. I'm not gonna lie. So I can't really like. I think it's. I don't know if it will win, but I mean, it definitely has a lot of positive
Yeah,
stuff that I could like really see it going well. But
yeah.
I don't know.
Let me put it this way. I think the games industry as a whole would be a better place if either Astrobot or Metaphor won. Because
Oh,
if Astrobot wins, then that means, you know, so many other either indie games or big studios or whatever will then be able to realize, oh, people actually like these kinds of games. We don't need to just make,
mm-hmm.
gritty, dark, and brown and, mature rated games forever. Like we can make, we can
Every
try again
action
with
game
Crash
on the.
Bandicoot. We can try again with Spyro. We can try again with Bubsy. We can try
Hmm,
again with Conquer. We can try with, whatever.
Spyro,
Like,
man.
I'm specifically talking to you, Microsoft, since you own almost all the games I just mentioned. Now, everybody, like, Banjo Kazooie, like, again, Microsoft.
Get it
So
together, please.
yeah, so that would be good if that would kind of start a trend for more companies that aren't Nintendo to make games like this. And then if Metaphor Refantazio wins, then that could also kind of show developers that like, oh, RPGs, they can exist in a world
Yeah,
of
people
like
do
it's
like
not just
those.
Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest that don't just corner the entire market. You can branch out and do cool things with genre. So yeah, I want one of those to win.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, but I just don't want it to be the Elden Ring, just because I don't want the precedent for DLC / continuations of the same games that were already good just dominate. I feel that just needs to be its own category.
Yeah, I agree. I hope it doesn't, but we'll find out next week. So okay, so it's gonna bring us back to just the two of us. Okay. Is there anything else you want to bring up or discuss before we sign off?
No, nothing more to add.
All right. So with that, we will see you all next time.
Take care, everyone.